Well, hello everybody and welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about Buford's 1972 arrest for civil rights violation. I want to talk about his witness statement to the TBI and to CBS. And I'm going to talk about Pauline's autopsy. The TBI's news conference has been a couple weeks ago now, so I wanted to let the dust settle before I did another video. I think everybody knows by now, or should know by now, that the TBI announced that, in their opinion, Buford Pusser was involved with the ambush site cover-up and the murder of his wife, Pauline Mullins Pusser. So if you weren't aware of that, I want to go over a few pieces of evidence that I think will maybe even shock you a little bit. There is a portion of Pauline's autopsy report floating already on the internet. I am not sure that this is the total report. It's not stamped anywhere that I can tell that it's an official document, but everything that it talks about is covered from the news conference that the TBI actually talked about. I do have some concerns that it doesn't mention anything about X-rays or CT scans on the body, but it does talk about a nasal bone, a remote nasal bone fracture, and I'll discuss that here in a few minutes also. But first I want to start off by saying that the family of Pauline Griffon Mullins and Robert Hill and cousin Trula, they are very grateful to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation for the work that they've done reopening this case a couple years ago, spending the resources and the time. I do understand that it did not cost any money to the taxpayers of Tennessee because it was on a federal grant, but we all pay taxes and it had to be covered some way, shape, or form in order to do such a deep dive back into this murder, August 12, 1967. So I want to lead this off by saying on New Year's Eve, 1972, Constable Buford Pusser stopped a small Volkswagen, had 4 men in the car. The driver was a man named Pickens, and he claimed that Buford Pusser assaulted him during this traffic stop. And the other men basically said and gave the same statement that Mr. Pickens did. So he felt like it was a civil violation. So he went to the FBI and filed a civil complaint. The FBI actually went to Buford Pusser's home, put him under oath, and took a witness statement from him on the incident. So this witness statement is extremely important. Some of you know that the TBI and Chief Deputy McNairy County, Jim Moffitt, estimated the ambush time to be between 4:30 and 4:45 a.m. on August the 12th. Buford gave a statement to the TBI that it was around 5 o'clock. So there's already a little inconsistency there. But when he was under oath with the FBI, he was telling the story that Pauline and himself were ambushed in the same general area at around 4 a.m. Now, keep that 4 a.m. in your mind for a minute. I'll get back to it at the end of this presentation. So we have Buford Pusser actually being arrested and charged with this crime. Could not find a affidavit or anything that states a conclusion, no documents to state the conclusion to this crime or this outcome. Obviously, Buford Pusser had a few of his people give witness statements for his side of the story. And I did a video on that. If you want to look through our videos and find that one, it's a good story on the 1972 civil rights violation of Mr. Pickens. So we want to start off with this story, the actual ambush. We all know he was traveling down New Hope Road. It wasn't a paved road back in '67. It says he was driving about 45 miles an hour. He's approaching the bridge. It's dark. He doesn't see the Cadillac come up beside him until headlights pop on, and then several shots are fired into the car, one of them striking Pauline in the head. So at this point, in this statement, he says he guns the car. In a previous statement that he gave to the press, he says that the car actually left and it came back again. So there are a lot of inconsistencies with his statement over the 7 years that he lived past the time of this ambush. Well, here's one problem I have already with this scenario. All of this is pretty legit, except for at this point, Pauline's been shot. He guns the car. He doesn't pull his weapon and fire at this blue-colored Cadillac. Now, he also describes it as a blue-colored 1964 or 1965 model Cadillac, and it's supposed to be dark enough to where he didn't see it coming up behind him until it popped its headlights on. That's another reason why I think this ambush was at 4 a.m. and not at 5 a.m. like he states later. So he drives approximately 2 miles up the road, and he's going to check on Pauline. So he pulls over near the graveyard, a little extra space there that he feels that he can pull off to the shoulder of the road. Now, his next statement really does blow my mind, and I'm going to read it to you. He states to the TBI in an interview that he did with them that he was looking directly at Pauline when she was hit again in the forehead. He had not been hit by a bullet then. All right, so you have this car coming up to him. He had to have seen headlights in his rear view mirror and his side view mirrors on both sides of this Plymouth. As he's looking over at Pauline, if this went down the way he said it actually went down. It's dark out. There's no street lights. There's only lights from the moon and the stars. His mirrors would have been lit up like candles. But he's telling us that he's looking at Pauline as this car pulls up beside him. And he has 1 foot out of the car, 1 foot still in the car, and they start firing again. The 3 men firing at him, and they shoot all around the car. They don't shoot his door. They don't shoot him. They don't shoot his window. But they are able to shoot Pauline again in the head, which he said in the forehead, which he saw. He saw it happen. Then he gets out of the car. He walks back to the trunk. He tries to get into the trunk to get his high-powered rifle, according to his statement. He also states he's got a shotgun laying in the floorboard, and he's got his .357 on his, he states, on his right hip. Now keep in mind, that's a very important fact also. So now we have him trying to get in the trunk. He realizes he doesn't have the key to the trunk. It's on a different key ring. Then he realizes that he lent his high-powered rifle to a friend of his named Cox 1 or 2 weeks before. So now he goes over to the side of the car, the passenger side, and gets in the ditch, and he starts hollering for Pauline and crying for Pauline like that's going to do Pauline any good. She's laying in the car seat with 2 head wounds. None of this makes any sense to me. Then he says that he sees the car, or he saw the car had left and gone up New Hope Road. Well, let me back before that just a pedal or two. In one portion of his statement, he states that he falls down after he gets shot in the chin, and he was stunned momentarily. Then when he gets back up, the car is still there. Well, these assailants have got to be the Keystone Cops of assailants. They haven't come over to the car to finish him off. but then he sees a rifle pointing at him and he grabs the barrel of the rifle. And that's when the car finally pulls off and drives down New Hope Road. So now at this point, he goes to the back of the car like I just shared. He goes over to the ditch. How long he stayed there at the ditch, we don't know. He didn't say. Well, now he gets really mad. Now don't forget, he says his jaw is hanging down to his chest. There's blood spurting everywhere. He gets back into the driver's seat. Pauline's laying over on the side. She's dying. He floors his car. He's going to go chase these guys in a Cadillac. I bet a lot of you Buford Pusser fans have never heard this story. And when I read this a long time ago, this was one reason in my first book that I really gave the TBI a hard time, because Buford Pusser should have been a person of interest all the way back in '67. He states that he actually sees Pauline laying across the seat, so he pushes her up against the window where she's later found in the car when this is all over with. And he manages to say, he makes sure he states that he still has his shotgun in the car, but he also still has his .357 Magnum on his right hip. Now he puts this in his statement because he wanted them to know that if Pauline fell over on him, he couldn't reach his weapon on his right hip because of this 110-pound woman, and him being 6'6", 260 pounds, and he can't push Pauline off of him to get to his weapon, is what he's insinuating. We all know that he wore his weapon on his left hip, and he did what's called a cross draw. And there's many pictures of him wearing his holster on his left hip. Now, that statement, to me, was just to justify if anybody asked why he didn't pull out his weapon and fire it. Now, driving down New Hope Road, I'm actually going to read what he said. This is unbelievable. If you believe this, well, let me read it to you, and then you tell me what you think about it in the comments. He states that he got on Highway 45. He turned towards Selma. He drove towards Selma and turned around on the hill after he passed Holly Jordan's beer joint, as he didn't see the Cadillac, and then he went back to Corinth in his car wide open. He's bleeding, his chin's laying down on his chest, blood pumping everywhere. Pauline's dying beside him. He's not driving to the hospital. He stopped the first time to check on Pauline. He didn't drive to the hospital then, before he was even shot. Then he states, when he got to the state line, he turned around in front of the Shamrock Hotel, where he could see the front of the Plantation Club. Now, the Plantation Club's been closed for several years. That's when he saw the blue Cadillac. He thought the car owner was W.O. Hathcock, Jr. Now, you see how he's trying to piece this together, this story? It's called an alibi. It's not going very well in my mind for him at all. And he states that W.O. still lived at the Plantation Inn. Well, if he did, his car should have been there. But what he didn't know is 2 weeks earlier, W.O. had sold that car to a car dealership, and he no longer owned the car. So that's a big problem. Buford was not aware of that. Now, once the news got back to W.O. and his wife, this upset them so badly that Buford was trying to blame him for this shooting, that they both voluntarily drove to the TBI's main office, and both of them passed polygraph tests. That's how bad this worried them. All right? So we got all this driving around before he gets back on New Hope Road. He drives to McCoy's store, and then he pulls in the parking lot, and he calls for help on the radio. He mumbles because he is shot and wounded at this time. Now he's mumbling and he's trying to get across on the radio at 6:20 a.m. So what we have here is a failure to communicate. At 4 a.m., remember I told you that he gave that time to the FBI in a sworn statement? 4 a.m. to 6:20 is now 2 hours and 20 minutes to drive from the ambush site a half a dozen miles to McCoy's store. Let me ask you, any reasonable person, would you believe that he did that wounded with his wife dying in the car? I don't think so. So let's talk for a minute about the autopsy report. There is one floating on the internet. I pulled it down and printed it off. I'm not comfortable saying that this is 100% the full copy of Pauline's autopsy report. I did not get it through the formal channels of the TBI or the medical examiner's office, but the dates and the names and the doctors all listed on it are correct. The part about the remote nasal bone breakage in her nose is correct. It does not talk about other x-rays or CT scans. And I don't know, maybe I didn't get the full report. Usually it's signed off by doctors too on the last page. So I do have some questions about this. It does look legit, but I want to preface that right up front. There's two things that jump off of this document to me right off the bat. First, the report of her nose being broke and partially healing. The term remote in the medical field, my wife being a nurse for 40 years, is a red flag to the medical staff that this should be reported to social services. Now that's in today's world. So I'm sure that if Pauline was to go into an emergency room with the bridge nose bone broken remote, that they would question her, is she safe at her home? Was this from domestic violence? And that's part of the remote, in quotations, is domestic violence related. Now, we cannot say that Buford Pusser caused this injury to Pauline. But we can say is it would not go good for him in today's world if he was even as a police officer. The medical field is very sensitive to injuries that come in, and the nasal fracture remotely, or remote is the word, is a sign of domestic violence. But what really jumped off the page, more so than that, because like I said earlier, we can't tie that to Buford Pusser. But what really jumped off the page to me is the statement that Buford Pusser gave that at the second ambush site, the car pulls up and fires again. It hits Pauline in the forehead, and he's watching it. He's turned towards her, and he actually watches her get shot in the forehead. It doesn't sound like much until you read the report on the autopsy that states that her injury to her head was from the back to the front. So it was an entry wound to the back of her head, and the exit wound was to the front of her head. That's a big red flag to me right off. And we don't know everything that's in the TBI report yet, but I'm guaranteeing you that it's going to be overwhelming information from photographs, from witness statements, from new witnesses that came forward who are afraid to talk the very first time, because Buford Pusser was extremely political and he was powerful. So if he wanted you to be in trouble, you were going to be in trouble. If he wanted to look the other way, he would look the other way. And there's many reports about that too. So stay tuned, take care, like and subscribe this channel. We'll have more to come. I do want to let you know that we have released our second book called Murder of Mrs. Buford Pusser Solved. Go on Amazon, type in my full name, Oakley Dean Baldwin, and all 32 of our books will pop up. Thank you again for your support. The Mullins family wants to thank everyone for their support and their prayers and their love. So take care. We'll see you later.